Hey, this is Milz from America, and I'm back with another tutorial in my tutorial series slash tutorial playlist that you can find in my YouTube channel. So, up here or here, you should see a little card. I think it's called a card, that when you click on it, it'll tell you that it's the playlist that I'm referring to, which is strictly tutorials. So if you've never been on here, I do tutorials. I do RC505 loopstation routines. I do voiceover analyses, etc. So after I'm done making this video, I'm going to put it in the interview playlist. So without further ado, I want to let you know that there are a million different ways to do what I'm about to explain. I'm just doing what's worked for me financially, emotionally, all that stuff. So basically, I'm using a PC, personal computer. You can do what I'm about to show you on a normal desktop, although I'd highly recommend that you do it on a personal computer. And when I say personal computer, you can, I don't care if it's Dell, MacBook Pro, whatever. And I'm also going to show you the software. Now, in part one, I already showed you the software, but first of all, that was a long time ago. Second of all, it was just the real basics, hence why the title of this video is Back to Basics Part 2. So if you want to see part one, I should have another card there. And that's going to show you how I literally unbox an RC505, how to find the power cord, put it in, get things connected. If you haven't watched that, I highly recommend you pause this, hit that up there, watch that, process, take a day to figure all that stuff out, and then come back here. So I'm going to show you stuff I do on the computer. I'm going to show you how I audio master. I'm going to briefly touch about on mixing, how this pertains to an RC 505 and even a 202. So if you're looking on how to mix just basic stuff like in Logic Pro, this is not the video for you. There are tons of other tutorials. I know Inky just released some. You can purchase it maybe if I put a link here down there. But anyway, I'm going to turn this camera around and we're going to get started. I'm going to show you more advanced stuff. All right? Ish. And one more thing before we finish. So by now you've probably already been hearing some background tracks. Wanted to let you know that all of those tracks are my intellectual property. So most of them are from me or my own loopstation tracks, but you're also going to hear several of them that are from when I interviewed people, such as duds. You'll be hearing duds, you'll be hearing buzzes, solo beatbox, you'll be hearing Vision Elf loops, etc., etc. So please don't think that you hear all these other things and want to report things to the intellectual property algorithms on YouTube. All right, so first things first, my thumbnail, I was looking this way. I had my head like right here, and I put a filter, and I'll show you how to do all that. But anyway, this is the same stand that I already demonstrated how to use in part one. If you haven't checked that out, do that. This is the only place I have available in my house, so yeah. And over here, that's where I made my wildcard intros. And this is also where I did my interviews. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to show you all that stuff and all that stuff a little bit later. I'm going to show you what in the world is all that over there. But first of all, you want to make sure when you're recording stuff, you don't want to do vertical. You want to go horizontal. Because if you're like this, what you're going to see all this blank black stuff. And you can if you want, but I highly recommend you do it this way. Okay, next thing is, see how this is lined up? Most other tripods, whatever, you adjust this stuff, and so I would do this on farewell. I would go in there, and then I would tighten it. You can use this for solo beatbox if you're a solo beatboxer stumbling on this video. So from here, you can see this, okay? So my stuff is on. Headphones, please wear headphones. This, your mic, everything is good, right? So, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What you hear right now, when I'm recording, for example, in the post-production, you'll hear, my siren sucks. But, let's say I had my vocal distortion, whatever here, you would hear that, right? But right now in the pre-production, you'd hear, ooh. So ooh, instead of the post-production, so that's just one example of something that you hear in pre-production that's significantly different. And when we get back over there, I'm going to show you how I take ooh to as you hear the final product. Okay. So when I'm doing, as for other parts of this part of this tutorial, you want to make sure your stuff works. Doesn't matter what kind of microphone. I'm using a Shure SM58. There's Sennheisers, Z5s and stuff. Do your normal stuff. I'm very, especially when I judge, I'm very, very big on stage presence. So like you'll see me, especially during drop parts, like doing this. My dance moves aren't as good as TJ, DJ, and S, but oh well. Unlucky, bro. Unlucky. But do this stuff now. Next part is when I make mistakes and I do a bunch of takeovers, because I make a lot of mistakes because my muscle. I would sometimes, let's say I'm going along, I do this. I usually just do this because if I'm doing this, then it cuts into here. That's bad. I just go like this. I compose myself. I take this off. I go for a walk up there. Go say hi to my dogs. Hi. Usually my water thing is right over there. Drink my water, do whatever, go back on the couch that I just showed you 5 minutes ago. Take a breather. You know, maybe practice with some pre-records, but eventually, when I come back and I want to retry it, and I'm going to show you, I would go over there and I press the record button, and I'm going to show you that part next. Compose myself. You know, get that. Go like this, and then I'd start. And then I would repeat that process over till I get to my final take. So let's pretend I finished my take. I got my 3 minutes, and I'm really happy with it now. I'm going to take you over. I'm going to take the phone. I'm going to take it off the tripod that it's been on, and I'm going to walk you around over here to the computer part. Okay? Okay, so right now you saw me do all that stuff and my water flask or whatever it would be right there. Okay, now I'm going to explain what in the world is going on here. Now, some people have other things that they use to record sound. I'd highly recommend, like I was mentioning before, Dell, MacBook, it doesn't matter. You can use this as like a 2-for-1 deal. You can use this as, well, you should be using it as audio. The second one you can use as a visual. You can actually kind of turn it around, and if you have a webcam, you want to get like a second view, and that way sometime in some of my old videos, you would take that, you'd like turn it over and like, you know, because then that way you'd get a different view like that, right? So you could crop that into this part of the final product. You know, you could, I'll show you how to scale, crop or whatever and do all that. Okay, so let's turn this around. So now, walking here, I have this all set up. I got, let's pretend the camera up there. Let's pretend that's back up there. I got all that set up that I just explained to you, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay. It's up to you if you want to keep a separate web browser open. I use YouTube Studio, and this is why I call it Back to Basics Part 2, because in Part 1, I did not show you this. This is why it's Part 2, okay? Upload, click that. In a while, this is my old computer, and I would keep this blank. Don't select any file. Just do that. Okay. Now on part 1, I kind of showed you briefly my program I like to use, VideoPad Pro. Some people think other stuff works. So this is where I kind of had my final product. Okay. So now, I would click up in the record. Like I was saying before, if you want to record video, that would be your cam. And I was just showing you before, some people like to use like a second cam and they would crop it up in this part or this part, whatever. We're going to skip that for right now. The most important part is to record your audio. Okay? In part 1, I showed you how to make sure that you don't want to do default sound in. You want to do this should show up. In part 1, I showed you the driver's input level. I keep it up here. Personally, if I go above that, it's going to distort. And if you go back here, it's going to make it, you're going to have to end up gaining in the end. So I would just honestly keep it here. Call it whatever you want. So my most recent thing was masks on. I would really, really highly recommend that I would do like the name of the routine or whatever. I would do the name of the routine and then audio. That way you know. Make sure you always want to test this. Okay, so now this is going. So whatever you're going in there, anything there and there and there is going into here. So you keep going. Let's pretend this is 3 minutes. Hit stop. And then it goes over there. Okay. So I'm going to close that out. And now I'm going to show you what the chord, what's going on here. So in part 1, I showed you these chords. So the extension thing. Part 1, I did this in a different room, so the extension stuff was a little bit different. Do whatever you need. Use extension chords. It doesn't matter. Make sure all that is good. Make sure your mic cable is good. I might need a new one. So that way I have this here. This for my phone charger. I'm going to explain why when you're exporting things, you really want this to not be on a low power mode. You want it on a full mode. So ignore this. That's just a USB. I wouldn't ignore it. This is your power button. So now I would take this out. Let it drop. Take your headphones out. Wrap this around. Make sure you put this in there. I'm going to put these on. And we're going to get situated here. So it looks like you should have your audio file that you have separate. So basically what I do is in my phone, I would have the video. So basically what happens is you send your thing over into, you'd have it on your phone, and you would and over here after this, and we're going to edit this out, and we're going to come back and I'm going to show you what happens up here. Okay, so right now we're going to pretend that this is what I recorded. Right? Okay. So now I want to make sure that my power is plugged in and stuff. And now I'm going to go down. This should show up. I'm going to scroll all the way down. Copy iCloud link. If it's plugged in and charging, I would do upload now. Read the instructions. Make sure you're on Wi-Fi. You want to hit the upload now. So give it a second. Now you want to go out, back away, go in your mail, click on that, go down here, and when you hit it once, it should give you the paste option. So then you type in your email. You're emailing this to yourself. You can try it the old-fashioned way, but I would not do that. You can call it whatever. We'll just call this wildcard. Email it to yourself. Okay, and then be patient with it. Okay, so now by this point, maybe it came up here sooner. So you want to click on that. Okay, so here we go. Here's wild. This is exactly what you just emailed to yourself. When you're in your iCloud photos, we're going to use our example. This is the one that I called wildcard photos. I'm actually just gonna, you'd wait for this to download. It says sign in, that's not necessary. You just have to be really, really patient, just like it says. Okay. But eventually it will show up. So this is what I actually did for my most recent video, my masks on. It will eventually download, and then it'll come down here and you can rename it. So it should be MP4 because that's a video file. Okay. So we're gonna go on to the next step of the process. I go from here over to here where I was, and this is where we are now. So here, my video file. Actually, I would go to sequence. My video file would be right here. So this is the only videos. Sequence means all of this stuff put together. All the audio, all the images, all the sequence stuff. So this is the video part. Click on it once. Sometimes be patient, that's just the video part. Now usually, when it's raw, in its raw form, you right click it, and I would highly recommend that you unlink it, because think about it, you're just gonna have this would just sound you pressing buttons and not really have the audio that you want. So you would unlink it. So that is why here that's why here this only shows you that it's just a video, that it's no audio, because if it was in its raw form, there would be a little music note right here, not just a video. But so that's your video. That would show up in your video files. Now in your audio recordings, it is the actual masks on cam. So when you unlink it, the audio would go from basically here all the way here. So this is not what you want in your final form. Your final form is what this .wav. This is your final audio that you're gonna want, because this is what you recorded. Remember about 10 minutes ago when I showed you how to go in there and hit record audio? Well, that is gonna transfer itself over here. So now in the most basic form that I can explain, you click on that, and now this is the raw thing. So remember when I was explaining how to do a lot of takes? Well, as you can see, this is a combination of multiple takes. So this is probably when I went to get a big drink of water. That was when I went to stretch, relax, take my dogs out, whatever, for exercise, whatever. And this, like the red is the set start. So this is just Video Pad Professional by NCH. I had to pay some money for it, but I set the start time over here, and you can drag this. In the end, this program does the blue. So generally for us loopers, it's, if you do a rough math calculation, depending if you're good at maths, 8 to 11, that's about 3 minutes. So if you see this, then you did it correctly. So that way you clipped it correctly. And then you just simply drag this down here. This, between here and here, should be this right here. And then if we go up here back to your video files, that you would drag down here. Now I'm going to explain all this other stuff. So you have all this. Be patient. You're probably wondering why in the world is that black and white? That's not black and white. Why is this? Well, because that's the next segment I'm going to tell you about. You want to get into your visual artistic side. So first things first, audio. you'd have to listen with your headphones, and that's why I said make sure this is here. This is plugged in. Yeah, so I would leave this at around 16% and leave this around 16%. The reason why is so that you don't have to do any master gains, and I'll show you. You'll see that. So I want to make sure that your audio is good. You really want to you really want to listen from start to finish. Make sure that you're absolutely happy with it. Otherwise, I would recommend repeating the process. But let's pretend this is your final thing. You're happy with it. If you think it's still not loud enough, this is just going to change the sound volume. That's not going to really, you might not want that. You go under effects, and this is where effects thing would go in. So, click on that. You have all these basic things. So I can't stress enough that for beatbox and loop, you really don't need an entire logic and isotope and all that stuff. I usually just use a mixture of either amplify, which is gain, and then depending on high pass or low pass, because SBX only allows very minimal EQing. You can do a general EQ here. You can do that, but that gets kind of complicated. If you want to do a basic amplify, if you think it's already distorted, then you can go on here and change that and make it down to like 95% or whatever. I'm going to tell you about the filters. So HPF filter, high pass filter, HPF, low pass filter, the opposite, LPF. So LPF, HPF. So sometimes, many producers, you click on that. They have some presets here. In this particular program, you want to kind of bring this down as much as possible because it's only a little touch. So basically, you know what? Well, maybe like 200 or so. So you go in there, depending on the program. I would do it very little, like maybe 200. This way, basically, it brings out a little bit extra of the high mids and highs, and it takes away some of the bass. Because if you find other audio mastering tutorials on YouTube, they'll tell you that you really don't want the bass frequencies competing with each other. So you do that. And then if you ever want to change your mind, now I'm going to show you what it's like with a low pass filter. With low pass, you'd actually usually want to, if you're going to do any low pass, you want to cut out any of the highs. I would recommend considering doing it up here. If you bring it back down, it's going to make it too muddy. So for this masks on routine, I actually cut out a little bit of the highs, so it sounds like a little bit more lows. So again, like Swiss and Beatbox International and all them, Crook, they really, when they say very minimal EQing, this is what they're talking about. So I'm just going to exit out of that. And so that's what I would do with this. And that's it. Very few edits for your audio. That's it. Those are the rules. Now for video is where you have to draw into your artistic side. So for me, you can tell I did some black and white here. I'm going under effects. Wait for that to pop up, and I'll show you the kind of fun stuff I use. So black and white, enable. You can get fancy with extra parameters. I don't do that. You can do, so usually for the majority of the routine, I'm going to show you like the drops and stuff, but basically for now, I usually do like a temperature, a saturation, and if it's a good program like this NCH is, it'll give you a little preview. So I like to use sometimes temperature or exposure to make it brighter. If you want to look for like the certain tone of the piece. So like in this, if you're in like a major or minor kind of key, that's why I chose to go from the original to like a more serious black and white. So I hope that makes sense. Now, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to click out of that. And now you're going to see, this is usually my own structure of like the drop, climax, or chorus. You can, if you're paying attention, you can already see some differences. You can see this looks a bit blue. Now I'm going to show you why. You can split things off. So you can go like right up here, click on it. You can split the link. And so if you zoom in, this is your zoom button. You want to be as precise as possible. So you want to match the audio with the exact part right here. And don't be afraid to drag this over a bit. And that way you line it up. So now I'm going to show you what I do. If it's like a crazier drop, now it's going to I'm going to explain all this stuff. So for this, I actually took out the black and white and I added some other things. A dreamy quality, make it a little dreamier. Temperature, 0 means that it's kind of in the middle. If you go down, it makes it more blue and cold. So that should explain why you'll see blue. If I did it up here, it would be very orange. Make it hot, because hot and cold are opposites, right? Okay. You can do some other things. A lot of people like to do something like a shake. I don't like to go super crazy, so I keep it pretty minimal. And so that is, and then so there you go. You have like some small color edits and some kind of shake dimension edits. So I get out of there, and that is why. And then you can test it out. So if you want to zoom back out, make sure that your parameters are exact, or it's exactly where your chorus ends, where the chorus begins. You always want to do a test run from here as it goes into here. So if you want to test it out, I would highly recommend putting it in context. Just let it run. Actually, to save time, I'm gonna zoom it kind of like this. You'll see what I mean. Okay, let's see if it worked. Okay, so you see the blue? You see the blue temperature? You see it's kind of dreamy? And you see that it's moving around. So that looks like, you can pause it right there. And that way your other effects work. Okay, now I'm going to scroll this on up. I'm going to explain what's going on here. So this is where you can get more advanced. So the first two things are the visual and the audio. That's usually it. I'm going to teach you some more advanced things. Because you're going to look on there like, wait, how did I put that picture of Bonzo in there? And how did I get the text? So you basically have separate text things. That's a separate one of these. And the picture, that's a separate one of these. So basically you have a bunch of audio tracks and you have a bunch of video tracks. So you'd have to go on the internet or do whatever you want. Email any picture of it to yourself. This is the raw picture. Raw. So this is what I got. This is what it started with. There wasn't all this extra red fancy stuff. Okay? So I dragged that down here, and that just happened to be video track number 2 instead of 3 or 4. I went again. I dug into my visual artistic side, and I just felt like doing some red. So I just kind of messed around with red. It's called color curves in this program. I didn't get too crazy with it, but that's why when you look up here, it's red. Now I'm going to show you how I scaled it down, because I should have showed. But basically, this is how you see how it, like this indicates that you're able to put things up and to the left or down and to the left, whatever. Okay. So usually for this ratio, to scale things down, because if you look up here, the raw thing of Bonzo was this whole thing, right? So I would usually put this in like a 0.3. That's going to shrink it down to that size. But you're not finished yet, because now you have the x-axis, which is here to here. So x-axis would bring it from here to here, which is where you see. And then the y is up or down. So the y-axis, bring it up here. So again, we brought it in here in the raw form, scaled it down, moved it up the x-axis over here, and the y-axis up here. Henceforth, that's how you get your red, small, X and wide Bonzo picture. Okay? Exit out of that. And I have one thing left to explain, is the text. So, I decide, oh hey, I want to write shout out to Bonzo or hi Bonzo over here, and then I want to do my normal self promo over here at Milz 505. Hit me up, da 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 da. PayPal, Venmo, or whatever, blah blah blah. Okay. So up here, I would go on text, and then I keep mine really simple. You can do all this other stuff. Very simple text overlay. And then you can kind of do whatever you want. So just kind of, if you want things to the right center, if you want it in the middle, if you want it in the right. So for this, I did it in the lower left. And you see how that's where the example thing would go. If you want lower right, you type and put it right there, lower left. And you can get really creative with the colors. If it's a lighter background, so you see how with the dreamy thing, it's a lighter background, you're going to want darker color. If it's, you see how here, the contrast, it's much more dark. That's why I see how this red is very, very light. Light color in a back, a light color in a dark background compared to a darker color in a light background. So dark text, light background. Light text, dark background. And then you make sure you don't want stuff going too far over. So don't hesitate to like hit enter space. That way it's not, pretty much this is on one side of your video and this stuff is on the other side. So there you have it. Your picture altered, text altered, other part of your text. And you'd exit out of that. And you'd have your separate texts. So it explains all that. And then make sure that this would usually be over here. You'd have to zoom in and stretch things out. So if I wanted separate text things here, usually you'd want to zoom it all the way out. So you'd start here, zoom it out. Be patient, it takes time for things to load. But that's basically it. So again, basically at the end, you want to check you got your text boxes. You can check that, you can see that those are your text boxes. You have your other picture, which is optional, but again, most important is your video and your audio. And then at the very end, when you want to check, I would always go back and check your work, go into sequence. Click on the entire sequence. And it should be very clean looking. Go back. And it should be the beginning. If it doesn't work, you might have to manually scroll back. All the way back. Hit your play button, and that way it'll take you to the entire thing. Okay? That's all that. Now, when you're done, I would, in part one of the tutorial, I showed you how to do it to YouTube. In part two, I'm going to tell you right now to not do YouTube. I would do it to a video file first. Okay? So obviously I already did this part. I would call this final version. So whatever it is, fine. I usually go to YouTube, make it HD. I try not to do it in any other parameters because it just messes up for some reason. File, don't ignore it. This is just for demonstration purposes. We're going to ignore that. We're going to hit create. Give it a chance. And then it would export. So like the real thing, it'll say complete. So we're just gonna leave that alone. You can check on things overnight, but I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm just gonna leave that alone. So when it's complete, I'm gonna show you how to go back. You go on your YouTube. Remember about 20 minutes ago when I told you would select your files? Okay. And you would go to, if you remember, if you had properly labeled your stuff, you'll see what happens if you did not. Because you have all these other videos of all these other things that you recorded. You type in your masks on final. Let's just pretend. Let's just use this for simplicity's sake. Open. And then don't click anything. Just let it go. And this is where you get your title. I'd recommend that you use hashtags. So the other things you can like your name, you can do BBX. If it's something that's not brutally obvious, then I would type it here. People put like their Instagram stuff and all that stuff in there. This just means that it's uploaded. I wouldn't hit next quite yet. I would wait. We'll go down here. Now, thumbnails, there are a million other tutorials online to show you how to do a thumbnail. I'm not going to do that. Playlists. I'm big on playlists, so as you can tell here, routines, interviews, reaction analysis. So you'd click one and then you'd be done with that. So is this made for kids? I'd always click no, because otherwise it won't let you comment. Otherwise, more options. You always want to click on that. Drag this down. That's up to you if it's paid promotion. Tags, I would do a bunch of tags like BBX, music interview, Milz, whatever. And that stuff's pretty optional, not as important. Category music, highly recommend that. Click next, because as you can see, there's basic. This is called YouTube Studio 1, 2, and 3. Now we're on 2. It would let you do an end screen. And it lets you do interview. Lets you show you on the end screen where you want stuff to go. Cards. That lets you put links to other things. And this is where you can make it public as an instant thing. So usually I'm very impatient. I just do public. The new fancy thing these days is schedule it to build up hype on your Insta story. That's just make sure the legal things of kids are in there, whatever. And then you'd hit save and publish. And that would be it. And that right there is everything. Hey, I hope that you learned a lot. I hope that now you can go and make a wild card or any video for that matter more effectively. If you haven't tried and you've been kind of like, I don't want to mess stuff up. I don't want to lose any files on my computer. I don't want to lose any 505 files, etc., etc. Maybe hopefully this video, made you look inside and get that confidence to do it. Second thing is, if you have done videos and it hasn't been as effective as you wanted it, hopefully I presented some new things, or I presented some things you already know, but from a different perspective. So I wish you all the best. Please let me know in the comments section any other tutorials. I have a bunch of other tutorial ideas that I haven't gotten around to yet, because I've been making World's Wildcards and other cool stuff. Check out my flute loops thing I made. So I want to wish you an Esh, Plesh, Smask, Money, Chess is I don't even know what chess is anymore. Shout out to Cook Song.